What's up, the internet? It's Kyle, the producer. See, that's my name. And I am joined this weekend. This is Pride on the Experience Pride. Welcome in. I am joined this weekend in hosting this event by one of the other people who often is behind the camera but is in front of the camera this weekend, Miss Jena.
Hi.
The
Every time you guys see me waving.
Wave.
You do so fast, so streets. Ah!
And we are pleased to be here now with the person who is kicking off our Pride event, our first guest of the weekend, and a person who is getting a lot of press for their new book called Killer Queens, Mr. David M. Booher.
I got to do Jenna's hands.
Everybody, two-handed wave.
It's so funny. I'm always behind the camera for things, and people are like, "Oh, hi, Jena," and they never see me, but I'm always like, "Hi," and nobody ever sees me. I'm doing it at this little bitty screen that nobody sees, but I'm always saying hi.
I love that. I'm just looking at the background where I am, and I'm actually up in the mountains today. And I was like, okay, I'll just drop the announcement for my book and then retreat to the mountains because who knows what's going to happen, right?
The crazy chaos.
I'm thinking it looks like a great vacation spot. Like
Ooh.
that couch behind you looks
It's a nice,
comfy just for sleeping on.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's a danger, right? I'll bring my laptop over there and I will sit on it and I will get 3 words written and then straight to sleep.
Yep. That's
so.
Yep. Been there.
I have to say, you guys, that opening is such fabulous 80s goodness. I love every second of it.
The animation was a lot of fun to do. I'm going, okay, I want bright colors. I want, we did pastels for the last event. I want bright colors for this event. And I'm like, you know what? I was watching Glow, the show on Netflix.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going, you know what? Neons. Just as 80s as we can get, neons. So I just went with it, leaned into it, and it worked out all right, I think so.
Yes.
100%. 100%.
So for people who don't know, David, tell us your origin story.
Oh, my God. So, I tripped into a vat of toxic waste, and here I am, a fabulous superhero, right? No, I grew up in Ohio, in a small town right outside of, right on the coast of Lake Erie, believe it or not, and I was there for about 18
years. Lake Erie, east or west? East or west side of Lake Erie?
I was about 40 miles east of Cleveland.
Okay, because I'm on the west side of Lake Erie in Toledo.
In Toledo?
Yes.
Oh my God! There you go. It's such a small world, right?
So I feel so left out.
On Lake Erie.
Yeah. So, well, that's where I grew up. That's where my family is. I was there until I graduated high school. Then I decided I had enough of snow, so I moved to Miami.
Big difference.
So funny. I went to college.
This year.
What's that?
We had a snow-nado this year.
What is a snow-nado?
It sounds like a sci-fi made-for-TV movie.
I kept looking for Ian Ziering, but there was a tornado that formed out over Lake Erie in the middle of a snowstorm.
Oh my God!
I'm glad in Texas. I don't understand if you're speaking English right now. What is that? I don't.
No, you're right to move to Miami.
Yeah,
right,
so I looked at
college.
Funny, I went and looked at colleges in like January, and I went to Miami's campus in January from Ohio as an 18-year-old kid, and I'm like, well, this is a no-brainer. It's gorgeous, no humidity, 70 degrees, just beautiful. Yeah, so I went down there, and I was there for 4 years, and then I moved out to LA, live now, and I went to law school out here. Believe it or not. So my first career is in the law. I'm still a practicing attorney. And that was like 140 years ago, feels like. No, I graduated in 2004. So I've been a lawyer for about 15, 16 years now. And I started writing 12 years ago. Didn't get into comics. Late bloomer when it comes to comics. I read things like Far Side and Mad Magazine when I was young. I never read any of the big two. I didn't go to comic shops. I didn't really, it's kind of all new to me as an adult. But I really started getting into it when I started going to San Diego Comic-Con. Because I was into the movies and TV stuff. And then the comics sort of seeped into all of that.
As they do.
And wonderfully, right? I feel so fortunate to be able to experience a lot of these books and stories for the first time. But the book that the series that I read, that I talk about this all the time because it's my favorite comic series of all time, is a little tiny indie book called Key that just made me fall in love with comics so much. It showed me what I didn't know what stories you could tell in comics, really. I just thought it was like, capes and tights and kind of, sometimes outlandish stories and just big spectacles. Read Lock and Key, and I thought, well, geez, if you can tell this kind of story in comics, you can tell any story in comics. And that set me on my path to reading things like Watchmen and Dark Knights. And so I'm reading Sandman right now. I'm in the 4th or 5th volume, and just opened up my minds as to what comics could be. And that really was what set my late in life love for doing this.
So I'm thinking about all of the things you just told me, and the thing that sticks out to me is that it's a sort of untraditional path, right? To get to where
Right.
to get to where we are now, right? Where you've got a comic, that is got a lot of buzz about its release in Killer Queens, and but Kanto has been kind of a hit for a while, and so
Sure.
they're very different books, and you came about this from a very different direction. So does that sensibility?
I think I think they're the same, dude. Same. All ages fantasy and big queer ridiculous sci-fi.
Okay. All right.
Sounds like my kind of party.
Yeah. You just have a cameo of Kanto and Killer Queens, and he's just like wide-eyed and horrified. It's like, what's going on? So yeah, I hear what you're saying about the non-traditional path, and I have a guiding principle that I've learned over the over trying to breaking into comics, continuing, which is I just want to tell stories that I love, stories that with characters I love, and comics that I would make even if nobody else wanted to, if no publisher got on board. These are things I still would pursue and want to see in the world because these are the comics I want to read. So I may be a audience of one, but I would love Kanto and I would love Killer Queens. So that's why I made these comics. Right. But Killer Queens is something that was important to me. Representation matters, and bringing together an all LGBTQ creative team really mattered in this book. Not only to give opportunities to the LGBTQ creators out there, but also be true to what the story I wanted to tell. And of course, there's so many creators who are not, or don't identify as part of the LGBTQ community, but are friends of the community. And I want them to be involved, and I want everybody to be involved who would love to be involved. It was important to me at the outset for the core team to give a platform to all these folks to tell a story that they were passionate about just as I was. And I think Claudia Balboni on art and Harry Saxon on colors and Lucas Catoni on letters is really has brought something special to this book because they have the same sensibility, the tongue-in-cheek, let's make fun of this world as much as we embrace it kind of approach to it. So it's been really a good mix, serving an important purpose in a very fun way. just fun. It's very fun. And Kanto is also super serious, you know. I mean, there's some fun to it, but it's also, you know, a lot about loss and being enslaved, and helping other people, and we have all that in Killer Queens, but it's a much brighter universe by design.
And I think that's what I meant when I said they're very different. Is that one is kind of a big romp, and the other one is this kind of more subdued, but like poignant and pointed kind of story.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what I meant by different. But the sense of, I can totally see what you mean now by the sensibilities are very much the same.
And it's about passion. It's about passion for the story. And, you know, the next things that I have coming out are kind of, you know, they're not like Killer Queens. They're not like Kanto. It's just something different. But they're stories that I feel so strongly about that I mean, I hope my audience comes along with me, whether or not they're huge fans of, you know, there's a lot of people who are big fans of Kanto, and I wonder, are they going to make the leap to Killer Queens? And then I think there are going to be a lot of people who are really excited about Killers of its story and tone and that sort of thing. And I wonder, will they make the leap to Kanto? And I just hope it's the passion for all of these stories that sort of brings them to the different. You may not enjoy one. You may enjoy one more than the other, or the next thing I do, you might enjoy more than those two. But it's just, I hope the audience now will give it a shot. And if it's not for you, the next one's for you. But I really feel like if you like how I tell stories, then, you know, come along for the ride, because this is going to be a fun romp, as you say.
Yeah. So, is your process different, one book to the other? When you sit down to write a Kanto story, is it different than sitting down to write Killer Queens? Do you write in a different place? Do you approach it from a different? Is there a different soundtrack? What? How does that play? Because I'll be honest, the second I look at that cover, I just hear, you know, Freddie Mercury in the back of my head, just, you know.
Oh yeah,
belting.
like there's definitely soundtracks to it in my head whenever I read them.
I mean, Janelle Monáe is just constantly in my head. Queen, obviously Killer Queen, but like the soundtrack to the Flash Gordon movie. That's awesome, and it's perfect for that, and that's the kind of feel I'm going for. As far as process goes, it's just, it all springs so organically from character that I sit down and it's the same process. But I have a lot of the soundtrack to Lord of the Rings and a lot of these big soaring instrumental fantasy tracks for Kanto. And then I channel him in his adventure, and that's how things sort of unfold. And for Killer Queens, it's like the Janelle Monáe and Queen sort of soundtrack to it. But then I look at these two characters who everything I feel like is super organic to their character. It's nothing. And Beatty, who's the monkey boss, the monkey with the jetpack. He's got his particular personality, so it's not like they have one-liners, but it's all because that's who they are. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy, right? It's so funny because Drax and Rocket and oh my God, what's his name? Chris Pratt, his character.
Star-Lord.
It's because you know who these kids, and so everything springs from their personality. And the hijinks they get into is because of who they are, not, manufactured to get there. And that's my process, is I sort of get into the mindset of these characters of Max and Alex and Beatty. And I'm like, what's ridiculously dumb thing are they going to in, because they made just a set of breathtakingly poor choices to get themselves to this place.
Isn't that how every adventure starts? Is choices and not always good ones, right?
Yeah, there was a anecdote that somebody said when you're writing this is that coincidence can always get characters into trouble, but you never want it to get them out of trouble. So that's sort of in this, it's their poor choices that get them into trouble, and then I like to think it's their ultimately good, deep down they're good people, and it's those choices about being good people that get them out of the situations. It's the same with Kanto. It's he goes on a quest to help somebody else, and he's so pure, he's a pure spirit that the choices he makes are going to help him along the way. And Killer Queens are the same way. They're dum-dums at times, but they're so pure. They have such good intentions that ultimately that's the thing, that the choices that they're going to make to get them out of their dire situations. So you're going to love these characters. That's what I'll say. You're going to love how ridiculous they act to get themselves into trouble, and you're going to love the choices they make to get themselves out of trouble.
I have to tell you, we're putting all this together, and I, it's when you talk to David for Killer Queens, I'm like, oh, I never even read this solicitation. I just ordered the book because there's a monkey with a jetpack.
So many people have said that. Like, whatever.
Well, Jena knows that I'm totally into animals doing people things.
Yeah.
That's one of the
Kyle, you better be sitting down because there are hench otter.
What?
His henchmen are human-sized otters. Surprisingly cheap.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait. I can't, that's...
And we're actually, so they just have a cameo and everybody loves them so much that I wrote this is like breaking news, guys. I wrote a short that's going to appear at the end of the trade, the collection of the 4 issues.
Oh.
It's probably early to reveal it, but I'm going to reveal it anyway. It's called Killer Queens Presents Harry the Hench Otter in It's Not Easy Being Mean.
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh,
So
I can't wait.
Strap in, people.
I'm so
It's gonna
excited.
be a hell of a
I'm so
ride.
excited.
I want plushies and
Yes.
t-shirts.
Yes, I need a coloring book.
I
Pins,
want, I want you. I just want this enormous swag basket for both of you that has nothing but plushies and coloring books.
I'm telling you, Harry the Henshotter is a marketing gold mine.
Yes,
Harry,
I love it.
It's not easy being mean, guys.
Oh,
And that's the whole shtick of it.
Otters don't look mean at all. But
they're so vicious, though.
That's the point. That's
but I love it.
You'll see. Beatty has a the fluffy monkey with the jetpack has a complex about that because he's the boss of assassins, and it's like, dude, you're wearing a leisure suit, you're 3 feet tall, and you have a jetpack, and you're cute as hell. I'm sorry. I'm struggling taking you seriously, buddy.
Okay, it's official. That's what I'm dressing up my dog as right now. Like for Halloween, I need to find a jetpack. He's cross-eyed and he's an Australian cattle dog that's all black and white, and he's gonna look perfect, and I can't wait.
Oh my god! You got to get one of those costumes where it's just the front, so he has in his front legs or the legs.
Yeah.
And give him a little laser gun with the leisure suit and a little little jetpack.
I have friends who sew. I'm gonna have to oh my goodness, the incoherent shenanigans. I can't.
I love it.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. I love animals.
Dead.
I will. Yes, I'm writing it down now.
So fun.
Got it.
I don't even know.
That's gonna be so exciting.
That's so. Now
no, and we.
And you know, rabbit hole of all the different things that you could do with a Henshotter.
Oh, I need it.
I'm seeing like the Wicked Witch of the West replacing the flying monkeys with something more effective.
Yes.
Like Henshotters with their own jetpacks.
Oh my gosh.
You know, we've outsourced.
So we're playing up
flying monkeys to these otters.
Yeah. They're not super great at following directions.
but they totally would have taken care of the little dog, like it'd been done.
You see like these quick cuts, right? They just keep flying into the Wicked Witch's castle and different things. And she's like, Dorothy, it's a human. And they drop in like corn stalks or the Tin Man or cattle or something. They're like, she's a human, people. But we do come down to it's there's heart to it. I don't want everybody to think it's just slapstick, because right now
No.
I think a lot of traction because it looks like a 50s throwback retro futurism mixed with queer characters, which is a wonderful mix that kind of pokes a little bit of fun at that period of time, the 50s, late 40s, 50s. And how close-minded and McCarthyism and post World War II, where everybody was so afraid of the other, they just wanted the nuclear family. But we do tackle questions of fascism, being afraid of the other and that sort of thing. But we do it in a very fun, because I don't think there's any way to really treat fascism as fun. We treat it in a very entertaining way. So
Yeah, I just learned the guy who played Tuco in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Eli Wallach, wound up playing a lot of Italians and Hispanics early in his career because he didn't want to tell anyone he was Jewish, because of that fear in the 40s and 50s of telling people that, he was Jewish. So he just leaned into the other stuff. And then in the 80s, when it came out that, that this is what had happened in his career, he got all kinds of awards and more roles because of it. And I think it's a weird that era, looking at it, there's so much complexity and nuance to how everyone felt, but it all boils down to this sense of identity and everyone wanting to protect their identity and protect who they were, to the extent of lying about your identity.
Well, yeah, and then you look at the flip side of that story, which is you had studio executives and you had broad audiences who looked at a Jewish actor and said, Jewish, Italian, Hispanic, we don't know. He just looks different, and we're going to accept that, and that's how he's going to be cast. So I always come back to the idea of the other. It's not, you don't fit into the cis het white male paradigm, especially back in the mid 20th century. You just were labeled as the other, as different.
Yeah. And
it's why I think that kind of situation can go on for so long. It's because people were unwilling to sort of confront those nuances and realize that it's not just category A, who is everybody that I feel comfortable with, and category B, which is everybody I don't feel comfortable with. So it's really it's a very interesting story from sort of both sides of that.
I mean, even now today, a lot of people still hide. I don't think anybody in my hometown knew half my family was Jewish at all. So it's still happening today. They just saw a bunch of Russians move into a small town and were like, oh, it's more Russians. And we ended up going to the Catholic Church, just trying to blend into everything. And we would just have like Seder and, everything at home. And during Hanukkah, we would just hide it at home. It wasn't until I moved to the city in, I think, when did I move here? Like 2010, I want to say, 2009. What was the first time I went to temple since we had left Russia. So that still happens today. And I don't know if it's like the mindset of the last generation that, nowadays we can, kind of see ourselves as us. Finding ourselves is
like that
long way.
Full identity. Like you're not just Russian. You're not just, however you identify as a gender, that sort of thing. You're like,
you can be more than one thing. Yeah.
You can be more than one thing. And it's there's such a rich mix for all of us.
Yeah.
It's just nice that we can now sort of embrace that with other people understanding the nuances to who we are and the intersectionality of who we are. It's just finding a place in the world.
Yeah,
Definitely.
We're talking about telling the story of the other in this kind of 1940s and 50s sort of mindset, as it were. Now, in Killer Queens, you take that and you throw it into this sci-fi kind of vision of what the future would have been back then. Does it make it easier to tell that story, or does it make it? What are some of the more? Let me put it this way. That's certainly a more interesting way to tell that story than just doing a period piece.
Right. So the inspiration to the whole world is that retrofuturism, because I just loved the tone and the feel of. You look at the covers of Popular Mechanics from the 40s and 50s, and they put on rocket ships and flying cars and cities on the moon and all these things that they thought the future was going to look like. And our future still might look like that. It's just they thought that was going to be the 2000s, and it could be the 3000s or the 2500 or whatever. But the tone and feel of that, the primary colors, the let's make up, let's try to look ahead and see what things might evolve. And you can see how the style of the time kind of got overlaid into what they thought the future would be, without sort of embracing the idea that style is going to change over time. So what we see in the future is going to be reflective of what's at that time, not like what our style is now. But taking that tone and that idea and then just making up our own worlds and making up our own characters and in thrusting us into, a different type of future where it is that retro futurism. So yeah, it kind of boils down to I really like that aesthetic and that vibe, and so I wanted to do it, but in a way that we told a story that was very progressive. And that's how it ended up happening. I also think there is something to be said for these stories that you see the bondage covers from the 50s where it's the damsel in distress. And I thought we need to gender swap that stuff. So I want the dudes to be the dudes in distress, and I want the characters who identify as women to come in there and just take charge and save them. And so we have that. Jen Bartel's cover is kind of a flip of, it's inspired by the old Conan covers, Boris Vallejo, and which National Lampoon's Vacation, the movie poster.
Oh,
do you remember that?
Yeah, where he's just like hitting like this and just like yeah.
He's the muscle guy,
Yeah.
And what's her face? His wife. I can't remember her name. Well, it was hanging onto his leg, and he was like the big, burly hero guy. And so Jen flipped that and put it on its head. So
I can't wait.
And once you read the first issue, you're like, that's 100% what Max would be doing in that situation. Alex would be saving the day, and Max would be clinging to her leg, like, this is his last moments in the universe. So.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Can you find the National Lampoon's Vacation poster, Kyle?
Yes.
It's probably just on the web. Yeah.
I've always wanted
the
reverse of that. It always reminds me of what was it called? Army of Darkness. They did.
They did a spoof of it too.
Yeah, they did a spoof of it, and I've always loved that spoof. So I don't know what it is. It's that one, and then there was another one that they did, and I wish I could remember what it was, but it was sort of a Mars Attacks also did one, and I love collecting those. I have a whole third or fourth, whatever bedroom it is, just full of like all of our posters and just pops and everything, and it's just like when I collect covers like that, I try to put them up all on there because I have all the Alien covers that Marvel did, kind of all connected over one of the windows, and I'm like, I need to get all of these on the other wall. It's
It
not
was fun.
haphazard.
Yeah, it's such an iconic image, and it was so fun to, you know, for these characters, and it just gives you the feel. And then our other cover is by Chris Abels, my good buddy, and he's phenomenal. There it is. Yeah.
I don't-
I've never looked.
I wish I could remember what the original picture was now.
It's Boris Vallejo is the artist,
Okay.
and I don't know if there is a specific cover that's that pose, but he's very much in that style where there's the big busty women, scantily clad, and then big
Yes.
muscle guys who are in fantasy situations.
I think it's about every one of Boris Vallejo's covers look like that. Like,
I think so.
I don't think there's one that's specifically that, but
there was, in the 50s, it was a lot of that bondage covers with the damsels in distress, and we just it's just such a focus on masculinity, because I think it was just the assumption that men were the only ones who read comics, and so they'd see themselves in male characters, and they'd see their desires in the female characters, and that's what we got for so many years, so many decades.
I love
It's
how
fun to
it's
kind of
flipped now.
it's fun to flip it.
You mentioned the Chris Abels cover, so we'll pop that one up as well.
Ooh.
This is our I'm such a huge fan of Dragon's Lair, so Don Bluth,
Yeah,
Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, that
I
sort
love
of.
it.
And this is I think this is such a fun tribute to that style of again, a big this is 80s hero trope, and just lay it over top of these two queer characters.
And this
So
was
much
the
fun.
cover that sold me because of the monkey. Like,
I think, yeah, I can't remember if has his flicking off the camera, but I think he is.
Oh my gosh.
We can address that, I believe.
Here's Kyle doing his magic. We have to investigate now.
I have to get it to scroll the way I want it to scroll.
Oh, don't worry about all the stuff. We're just having.
I'm pretty sure he is.
Storm.
That's a middle
Oh, he
finger.
is. I love it.
You'll see, there's a particular scene in issue 1 where that comes. That's a serious plot point.
I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
So I know Jena has some questions that she wants to ask. But I just wanted to ask. We had talked about it earlier. Claudia is in Italy.
Yeah, I
Is that what
believe
you're
so.
saying?
Yeah.
So what? And this is a question I would ask everybody anyway. What's it like working with someone on a different hemisphere?
It's really
Time zones are hard.
yeah. We correspond mostly via email, and so that's easy. You just get an email, and it's just there, and you can answer when you need to. But it's with technology, it's just not that much of a challenge anymore.
Oh,
Harry and Lucas. I want to say Lucas is South America, and Harry is in Spain. I want to say I hate saying it because I don't want to get it wrong, but I guess that makes my point, which is we work with this team who is spread all over the world, and it's such a non-issue that it just doesn't even occur to me that they are in other places. So they're all been super fantastic to work with, super responsive. And it's really easy to make a comic with a team that's spread out everywhere. The one unfortunate thing is it's hard to have appearances at cons, but that problem was solved over the last 16 months.
Yeah.
For good or bad.
it's made so many things easier.
Yes. The 5 things that's made easier and the 50 million things that's made harder.
Yeah. I mean, we gotta look for the silver lining, right?
It
Oh,
is the best months of my writing career have happened since the pandemic. So it's really been pretty fascinating.
I feel so bad. During the pandemic, some of the best things in my life have happened. I got married, got a house, got a dog, and I'm just like, my year was great, and everybody's like, this is a bad year, and I'm like, I know it's a bad year. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But I mean, you got it. Yeah, I say that you have to take joy where you can find it.
Definitely.
And there's, the world around us. There hasn't been much joy in it. If you've gotten married, if you've gotten a dog, if you've bought a house,
Yeah.
you just embrace those things.
Definitely. Yeah.
It's been hard for a lot of people. And that's what I just tell them. Even small things.
Yeah.
If you've made it this far, take joy in that.
We're alive. That's greatness, and I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
So speaking of like little joys and stuff, so I read somewhere that you kind of like old school Nintendo games. Do you still? I don't know, like maybe Dr. Mario, perhaps, or some other game.
It was the original Nintendo. Super Mario Brothers. So can I tell you my backstory for the NES?
Yes.
So one of the I have an identical twin brother, and one of our earliest shared memories we were just talking about it a few weeks ago. It was a memory that both he and I have exactly the same way, and it was crystal clear. We were on vacation visiting some family friends on a farm in West Virginia. And every night we would play a Commodore 64 computer. And they had this game on it called Bruce Lee. I think it was just called Bruce Lee. And it was super rudimentary, 8-bit, pixelated, even more basic than the NES. And I want to say it was 1987 because the NES came out in 86. And we were playing and we were glued to this thing. And my dad comes in the room and he says to both of us, I think when we get home, I'm going to buy you a Nintendo. And we were, if it was 1987, we were both 8 and we lost our minds. We have the exact same memory that it happened the exact same way.
Oh my
So
God.
we had the original NES. And if anybody, you probably don't know this, but original NES had an option for the deluxe system where there was a robot.
Wait,
It was called, a robot. There was a robot.
Okay, I have to go find this now.
You have to Google it. It's called, we were just talking about this. I can't remember the name, but the game you used it on was called Gyromite.
Okay.
And it was this little platform, Rob the robot.
Yeah.
And he kind of looked like Johnny Five from Short Circuit. Because a platform, you sit on it, and he's a skinny little body, and he has a head, and he has these arms that have clasps on them. It's like clamps from Futurama, if there's any Futurama fans out there. And there were these spinning discs, and there were 2 platforms, and they would be spinning if you and you insert the controls in under these discs, platforms. And you would have to move a disc with his arms from one platform, which would start it spinning, the disc, and then you pick it up and you move it to the other platform, which would continue it spinning, and it would press down on the controller, insert it in there, which would move pipes up and down to let your guy move. There he is.
Is that? That's adorable.
Johnny Five is alive.
Oh, I love it so much.
I have to tell you
that we had at my house was the Atari, where me and my Nana would play Pong. We would just sit there. It was so great. We loved it. But small town, little old house, big old fat TV that's only like this big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's
so we had
for a Rob for a while to put on the shelf here in the studio. Like, they're crazy expensive.
They are because they were terrible. That's the moral to the story. I
They
just
were-
described to you it. That was so terrible to play with. First of all, we discovered you could just use the controls to move the pipes up and down on the game. So we were like, screw this. It takes so long. We're like, oh, kids are going to love this. You have to spin the disc and they have to move it and put it on the thing. And then once it stops spinning, you have to pick it up again. And we were like, this is the worst. So we played with it like twice. And then we put it aside. But we had the shooter came with it with Duck
Yeah.
Hunts. We had Super Mario Brothers. My passion was Legend of Zelda, Shadowgate, Bubble Bobble, Contra. My brother and I played together. Kid Icarus. Yeah, and so since I have to work from home, I'll put the TV on behind me, and YouTube has all these playthroughs.
Oh
Or
my
you can
god.
just put Legend of Zelda and somebody else will play for you. You can just occasionally look up and you can see, oh, they're on level 3 dungeon.
Have you
It's
seen
awesome.
some of the secrets that they've been discovering for Legend of Zelda? Like the original one, they're like, oh, if you go here, you could have actually done this. And I was like, no, I spent 100 hours on that game. How did you find that? How? Like, it's
just-
the most ridiculous thing. And I don't know
Yeah. The power
Oh my
glove.
gosh.
Now you're playing with power. They have the
I,
old commercials. They have the old commercials on YouTube. You can do a whole playlist of just old Nintendo
Oh
commercials.
yeah, they put up on Amazon Prime a whole thing of what is it, like the 50s drive-in movie theater, like old school, like go get your popcorn while the break.
Yeah, the intermissions.
What? That is so crazy. I was like, why is the hot dog dancing and jumping into a bun? This was on like actual things in front of kids.
Yeah. Our best NES game. For me personally, it was probably Legend of Zelda because of the play value.
Oh yeah.
I
So
was going to say Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong.
That was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Contra, and I'm having a lot of flashbacks. To playing a lot of
I
Contra.
did too, yeah. I keep
The
thinking
Konami
about-
code.
Mhm.
Oh.
See,
Okay.
I was a Genesis guy. I was a Sega kid.
Altered
when I was-
Beast.
Mhm. I keep asking people, did anybody else have the 7-Up game for Genesis?
Spot?
For Sega?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
Spot
I
game.
forgot about that.
I never had it, but there's also, since the pandemic, there's been a lot of time to put the TV on in the background. And there's these playlists that you can play that they'll just go through. Here's all 1,400 NES games ever
my
made. And it's like, 20 seconds of each game. And so you can see hundreds of games that most of us have never even heard about. And I did the Genesis one, and Spot
Oh.
comes up, and I'm just thinking, oh God.
I think I watched one of those videos for it was old DOS games, and there was this
Mhm.
one for Captain Crunch. You got in a Captain Crunch box, you sent in the lids, and it was called it was something about creatures you were trying to save from mining Captain Crunch balls in the ground. And I'm just like, this is okay, so they're mining the Captain Crunch berries, but you have to save the creatures. But you had to eat the cereal to save the creatures.
Of course you do.
I like, what
that
other
gr-
cereals had games?
I want that gritty shared universe of serial characters where it opens with the grizzled Captain Crunch with a hook. He's on the prow of the ship, and it's pouring rain. It's like a tempest, and he's pulling up to a
Trix Rabbit's
port.
just bugging the crap out of him.
He pulls up to a port, and then the people are elves dressed as like hobbits with their hoods on, and the rain's pouring down, and it's dark, and they come out, and they say, "It's worse than we thought."
The camera pans to a castle on a hill with lightning behind it, and there's Count Chocula.
Having a
Yes.
dinner date.
I think
What's his
we're
name?
writing the
Frankenberry.
comic now. I think we're officially writing this comic now.
That gritty reboot of
Oh,
the
oh my god.
General Mills, and the town is going to have a sawmill that's going to be called General Mill.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. It has to. I would expect nothing less.
Oh.
Okay.
So we only have a few minutes left. So Jenna, what else you got?
I'm sorry. I've got
What
pouring
else?
rain. I didn't hear you.
What else you got? I know you had a few more.
So actually,
Oh my God, Jenna. It's time to go into the horror.
We've had nonstop rain for the last week, and we have another week of it. We've had flash flooding, we've had tornado warnings, tornado watches, but I'm used to like hurricanes with floods. During Harvey, I was actually stuck in a guard shack for 72 hours because we were flooded in, and we ended up getting rescued by boat in the middle of downtown Houston. So this is nothing. We've got a canoe around here somewhere. It'll just be loud for a minute.
How a horror movie. Jenna, that's how a horror movie starts and ends. You know that, right?
Well, I mean, I was an armed guard, so I was fine. Plus, I'm
You were
not
the first one to go.
Yeah. Plus, I was not the type of person. I was like, you know what? Let's stay as a group. And I did. Like, we had a group of like other people that were getting stranded in their homes. We told them to come to the guard shack. And I was like, let's all stay in the guard shack. Like, oh, they only brought one boat? No, we'll stay here. We'll wait for the bigger boat to come get all of us. We'll wait.
Yeah, that's
I've
a
seen
good final girl
the
move.
80s horror movie classics.
Yeah.
We're not separating. This isn't
Always
Scooby-Doo.
with the party, man. So
What could go
ironically, and David, you'll get this reference. The shape of Lake Erie changed last week because we got so much rain here in Ohio that there are now cities that no longer exist.
There are now what?
There's now several small towns that no longer exist.
Ooh. Wow.
Including mine.
I thought that was just a South Texas hurricane season thing. It's everywhere. Oh, so actually, my brother and my husband wanted to know which one was your favorite Lord of the Rings movie and which one was your favorite Star Wars movie.
I just rewatched all of those.
So did
over
we.
the course of a year. Lord of the Rings is very hard. It's such a challenge because it's such a unit.
Yeah.
It's such a storytelling unit in the three. If I had to choose, probably Return of the King.
If it helps you at all, my favorite one is Two Towers, just because of the Ents that show up in it. Huge fan, love them.
Yeah, and just that moment they get so angry that they
just start
they
shaking.
take out Saruman. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love. Somebody posted this on Twitter, and it just gives me goosebumps every time. It's just that last scene, and I love everything about all the movies, but that last scene where the hobbits kneel before Aragorn, and Aragorn
and
says,
he's like,
no,
oh yeah. That's
you kneel for no one.
You kneel for no one, my friend. And I tear up every time. I'm like,
I got goosebumps right now because then they have that beautiful wide shot of everybody.
It's so beautiful. And then it's also I think it's in the first one. Oh my gosh, guess the parents were shit. Oh, And then the part when Samwise says his speech, when he's like, there is good in the world. And I'm always like, I got to share that at least once a month. I love it. Yeah. Just his speech always just, I love it.
Does my nerd card get revoked if I've never seen any of these movies or read the books?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
No. And you know why? And I will beat this drum until my last breath, which is I cannot deal with anybody who gives anybody else flack for not having seen something they love. And one of my friends said this to me a long time ago, and it's always stuck with me. And she said, why would I ever say anything to discourage you from experiencing something that I love so much, but you get to experience it. I never get to do that again. And now you get to see all of these movies for the very first time, Kyle. And you may not connect with it the way that we connect with it, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't want you to not go see it because somehow you think I think less of you because you haven't. You've probably seen so many things that I have never seen. So
Well, that's the thing I always tell people is by the time my friends discovered Lord of the Rings and the movies were coming out, I was already 2/3 of the way through the Stephen King collective works. You
Oh,
know, I went a very different direction in my fandom because I was introduced to things like Preacher and The Watchmen entirely too young. You
Yeah,
know, so it's but it's one of those things is like you're telling these stories, you're getting so excited. I'm like, that sounds awesome. Never seen it.
it
Now I'm
holds
gonna go,
up because we've seen it so many times. If you're a fantasy fan, it's really just one of the most wonderful visual stories. It's most wonderful fantasy stories that I think has ever been
yeah.
told.
And then it feels like it's a full like beginning, middle, end. Like it's so beautifully done. All the side stories have like pretty good wrap ups. There's maybe like one or two that I have questions, and then I just go back and I reread the books when I do. It was really cool this year for spring break or whatever you want to call it that they had this year. My two teenage nieces who were living with me at the time, they're 15. At the time, they were 14 and 13. They got to sit down and watch it for the first time with us. And we actually started the extended one. And the older one, she didn't really care about it till halfway through the second one. And then she just like forgot she even had a phone. And it was so great. I wish I could have
Okay.
recorded it. I had so much fun like getting to show. I have 17 nieces and nephews. So I can't wait to like eventually show all of them. Like
Sure.
this is, yeah. So it's really cool.
That's so great.
So much fun to share it, especially with each like of the next children's.
I think what's so effective about it, we were talking about this with some folks the other day. The story, there's so much going on. The story is so simple at the end of the day. It's this little character has to get this ring to this place. This little character has to get this thing to this place to save the world. And no matter what happens with the side stories and the wars and different fights and all these different things, you have that guiding light. So you never lose sight of what the story is ultimately about. And I think there's so many stories out there that have so many layers and nuances and all these things that you kind of lose interest because you don't have that one thing that you can always fall back to. I don't know what's going on in Minas Tirith. I don't know what's going on in Helm's Deep necessarily. I'm not following all these things, but I know there's Frodo and I know there's that ring and I know he's got to get it to that mountain. That's all I need.
Yeah. Although the Helm's Deep battle was one of my favorites
Yeah,
of
of
the
course.
entire
Yeah.
series, especially in the extended edition when all the trees just start showing up and they're like, "Don't go in the trees! Don't go in the trees!" Like,
And
but
they
it's
ate
trees.
them.
advice for anyone with seasonal
The
allergies.
orc just the Orcai and the orcs were just like, ugh, dead. It was greatness.
Definitely.
Now I just watched them all last month. I need to sit down and watch them all again.
Do it again. Do it again. Do it again.
Oh,
So
I need to go find more nieces and nephews. I need to go find them. We have a family reunion coming up. Now I have to do it.
Jena.
Like, come.
She was arrested for kidnapping. All she did was show him the Lord of the Rings movies, but apparently they looked down on that.
Next time it'll be the Hobbit movies that I kidnap them. It'll be fine.
There you go.
It was just a family reunion. They don't want the kiddos anyways. I'll just bring them over. We'll be fine.
So we got about 5 minutes left. So let's do the job. Which is to say, David, we talked about it a little bit. We talked about a lot, kind of. But give everybody out there who's watching the elevator pitch for Killer Queens. Tell them what they should be looking out for, and tell them about the book.
Sure. So Killer Queens is about two gay former intergalactic assassins for hire on the run from their boss, who is a fluffy monkey with a jetpack. They have stolen his ship and he wants it back. So as they try to evade him, they take a job, a standard no-kill kidnapping rescue on a planet that's split down the middle. Half of it is free, and the other half is run by a fascist dictator. And Killer Queens being who they are, they have a meticulous plan, and it all goes to hell almost immediately. And then hijinks ensue. There you go.
And don't forget, Henchotters.
Oh, henchotters. That's the elevator pitch.
I'm
Killer
gonna
Queens.
get.
Two
I'm just gonna get the
gay
word
former-
henchotters tattooed on my arm.
two gay former reformed intergalactic assassins for hire, and there's henchotters.
Perfect.
Done.
And where can people follow you on the social media and support you in your work?
Sure, you can follow me on Instagram at David Booher. You can follow me on. No, that's wrong. Let's try this again. This is not live, right?
No.
Take two.
You can follow me on Twitter at David Booher. You can follow me on Instagram at David M. Booher. My website is www.davidbooher.com. You can follow Canto at Canto Comic on Instagram and Twitter. Killer Queens now has its own dedicated Instagram page, Instagram account, which is at killer_queens_comic. You can also just look at my account. I know it's kind of confusing. And Killer Queens comes out from Dark Horse on August 18th. It's available for pre-order now. Make sure you pick up all 3 covers. We're going to have a very limited number of variant covers, so you just want to make sure you Pokemon thing and you grab them all.
Gotta catch 'em all. Comic
Catch
books.
them all. Catch them all. Dang it.
That actually leads to, I always ask everyone one question they can't possibly have prepared for, which is, what's your favorite Pokemon?
What's my favorite Pokemon? I never. Don't make me choose, Kyle. That's my go-to every time for anything. I'm not familiar with Pokemon. I mean, I know Pokemon, never played it, but that's always my go-to. Don't make me choose.
Well, then we'll swing it around on the other side. Ultimate Nerd Garage. You get 1 car and 1 spaceship from all of pop culture. What goes in the Ultimate Nerd Garage?
It would be Serenity from Firefly,
But of course.
and then it would be Serenity from Firefly with wheels.
All right.
Because I am a leaf on the wind, Kyle.
Aw, watch me soar.
Uh,
Why you gotta hurt me like that?
It's my
Why you
favorite.
gotta-
I love Star Wars, but and I'm a big next gen fan. But Firefly is like that's my ride or die. It's my ride or die.
so I don't know. You've probably seen it. Have you seen the video of Jesse L. Martin singing the Serenity song, the song from Firefly? You can't take the sky from me, or whatever it's called.
Oh,
Yeah.
Him and
No.
the guy who played Cisco from The Flash
Oh,
did a
really?
record together, and to promote their Kickstarter, they did a video of them singing the theme from Firefly.
Yep.
And they're both musical theater guys. Jesse L. Martin, in Rent and everything else. And
Oh,
then,
yeah.
the guy who played Cisco, I can't think of his name, but he was in things like 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee and a bunch of other stuff, where he just got outshadowed by Josh Gad. But it's a great, that's my favorite version of the Firefly theme song is those two.
Really?
Guys together. Yes.
It's so funny because the theme song is so perfect and haunting, and just it's just so fits so well with his voice and just the way it's really just the guitar. So I'll have to listen. It just makes me emotional every time I even hear the theme song, because the show is just, it's like almost mourning a loss.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't understand. I'm sure they're like, it was a TV show that lasted 1 season. But there's a connection there.
Yeah.
No, we're all brown coats at heart.
Good.
Yes. So I know you're on a deadline, so we promised we'd keep you to an hour. We appreciate you being here and kicking off our Pride event, David. Make sure you go out and pick up Killer Queens, all 3 covers. They're all awesome. They're all I'm just excited for the book. How many issues is it, real quick? I know it's a mini. How many issues is it?
Just 4.
Just 4. So you got to get on it early. and then make sure you pick up the trade as well on that one.
I mean, I would love if people, please, because the stronger we are, the more likely it is we're going to get the second arc and the third arc and that sort of thing. And I just want these characters. I just love these characters so much. I want to see all of the ridiculousness that they get themselves into. And there can be 100 scenarios. So let's see them all. Let's catch them all, Jenna.
I'm gonna have to get a shirt made where it says "Catch 'em all" and it's just like the cover on the back, like all 3 covers or something.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we're gonna get that to the shirt shop.
Yes.
David, I really appreciate you being here, man. This has been wonderful. It's been a great kickoff.
So much fun.
Yeah, and happy Pride, and thanks for doing this today. It's really important to be out there and be visible for all of us at this platform. So thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So everybody,